welcome back to another episode of Healing in Hindsight. In today's guest episode, I have Alicia Harding, the owner and chef of the Queen Lovely Catering. I'm really excited for you guys to hear this episode. It was a great conversation. We talk about so many things, but I think the key things to take away are you're able to really make food functional for you and enjoyable for you. It's all about finding balance with your food and some other cool things that Alicia is up to that I really just feel would be beneficial for you guys. Be sure to check her out. Of course, I'll have everything in the show notes, and I really hope you enjoy this conversation. Let's do it. Hi, Alicia. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Happy to have all of my functioning utilities with all of the fun stuff happening here in Texas, but I will not
Sure.
complain. So I'm really glad that we were able to connect and take some time to get to learn more about you, about your business, and the new and exciting things that you are going to be doing soon. So I would love to just kind of dive right in and just learn a little bit about you, introduce your background, how long you've been a diabetic, and anything you'd like for us to know.
I am originally from a small town in North Carolina called Washington. I was born and raised there. I've been in North Carolina most of my life. I did spend 6 months in Memphis, Tennessee, but then I came back home. I am planning to leave the area just simply because it's not a place for growth in my profession. So, and I want to be closer to my mom and brother. So it's just time to relocate at this point. I am the mother of two. I have my first grandbaby on the way. So my daughter is
Oh,
20 and
wow. Congratulations.
my son is 9 and he is homeschooled. So I am a homeschool parent as well, which I absolutely love. I love it. But that's basically the gist. I have been married. I am widowed now for 15 years. So
Hmm.
that's pretty much my life. So focused on my kids and
Well, I thank you
business.
for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about it. Keep it simple. Well, I appreciate you sharing all of that. Now, if you don't mind, what is your business?
I am a chef, actually. I have, since I was diagnosed with diabetes, I have ventured into a new niche. So I concentrate on working with diabetics and their diet. I am in the process of creating new products that diabetics can cook with that's healthier than what's available in the supermarkets for us right now. And I think that'll make it easier for diabetics to adjust to their diagnosis as opposed to looking at
That's
what's
awesome.
on the grocery store shelves now and not knowing exactly what to change without feeling like they're giving up absolutely everything.
Yeah. I really appreciate that too because I actually recently just had my doctor's appointments. And although there was some good stuff that came out of it, there was some not so great stuff that came out of it. And one of those things was getting a CGM
Mhm.
because my numbers still aren't where I would like for them to be. And I was telling my doctor, like, I feel like I have to eat once a day basically in order to be in the right range because sticking my finger every 5 minutes it feels doesn't give me the right information to know, okay, did the concoction of things that I just eat set me off or was it
Mhm.
something else? So definitely having meals or products
Mhm.
catered towards those of us who rely on our food to keep us in the best place possible is really important. So I appreciate that. So
Right.
when was your diagnosis and are you type 1, 2, 3? There's a 3 now, Modi.
Right. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, heart disease,
Oh wow.
and neuropathy all at once
Okay.
in 2019. And being opposed to medications or modern science, I wasn't very fond of
Sure.
sticking myself with a needle. And I knew even before I did it the first time that that was not going to be for me. Although I'm not ready to die, so I had to do it for a little while. So I did it for the first 3 months until my follow-up appointment, of course, and I actually was able and I think more so because I was more determined than anything, to get rid of those needles, that I was actually able to get rid of them not in 3 months, but I made great significant progress. And within 6 months, I was completely off of insulin.
Wow.
So no medications at this point. And it just, I think, lit a fire in me to help others do the same on their journey, because so many people die of diabetes every
Yeah.
year. Mostly because they don't even know. I mean, the resources aren't
Right.
there. They're just not there. And they don't know what to do or how. A doctor or a dietitian can say, limit yourself to this number of carbs or limit yourself to this number of calories, but they don't specifically tell you what to purchase in the grocery store or what ingredients to avoid or things of that nature. So that's what, as a chef, I've set out to do, just to make it easier for people to function.
Yeah. Wow. And congratulations on being able to really have the discipline to bring yourself to a place of coming off medication. Definitely a goal of mine
Oh,
myself.
it's not easy.
It's not. It is so not. And I really commend you for having the fire lit under you immediately, because I was diagnosed in 2015, and about 2.5 years I
Okay.
spent in denial and was just like about 25,
Hmm.
26-ish. So I was just like trying to focus on my corporate career over my lifespan of the vessel that I'm in, right? So it definitely can be
Hmm.
difficult. So we definitely need more people like you to advocate for us and provide products and services for us, because it really is overwhelming when you enjoy food, but
Hmm.
it's also the thing that could take you out if you're not careful. And so,
Right.
yeah, it's
Exactly.
crazy. So, with that, I'm curious to know. I usually like to ask my guests like one question. And so I decided this year or this season that instead of asking like what their goals and stuff are, I'd like to ask those who are of the community, what's one misconception about being a diabetic that you want people to know isn't true? Because I feel like we get a lot of stuff, and not even diving into which type, just being labeled a diabetic. There's so many things that people stereotype us for that are just crazy and not true. So I'm
Exactly.
curious to know what's one thing that you would like people to know is not
Okay, so there are definitely a lot of
typical.
misconceptions, but I think the number one misconception is diabetics can't eat sweets.
Yeah.
That is the biggest misconception. And even diabetics
Yeah.
believe it. I mean, it's been said for so long that everybody believes it now,
Yeah.
but it's not true.
Right. The idea that sugar is the ultimate thing that gets you there. It's like, no. And I was actually in a clubhouse room a couple weeks ago, and it was a nice talk. It was doctors, people in tech who are making products to
Mhm,
help with nutritional things. And then there were obviously other diabetics in the room, because the room was specific for that topic. And one guy was
mhm,
like, we were talking about the different types, and he made a comment saying, ultimately, type 2 is, usually brought on by a series of bad choices. And I was just like, I halfway get where you're coming from, but at the same time, I feel like you're riding a fine line, because it's just not that simple. And now that there's more information coming out with these different types too, especially the more genetically based one, it's just like,
mhm, mhm,
yes, I can understand things that are kind of out of your control and you don't know that the choice that you're making is
mhm,
not the greatest. But I rebutted with, so what would you do for usually marginalized communities that are the ones that are getting hit the hardest to combat that? If your environment doesn't
right.
foster you to know these things, then how are they considered bad choices? They're just choices until you learn after the fact. So I am all for breaking these misconceptions, because I love sweets and I feel like I shouldn't have to give them all up. I monitor, but
You
if I
don't.
want some Sour Patch, I feel like I can have a couple Sour Patch.
And the thing with that is just proof. I never ate sweets.
Hmm.
And I purposely didn't eat sweets because diabetes runs on both sides of my family.
Right.
So I knew I wanted to avoid
Hmm.
it. I still ended up with it.
Same.
So, and I was one to, I mean, I didn't eat candy. I didn't eat cake. I might eat cake on my birthday and maybe Thanksgiving and Christmas,
Yeah.
and that would be it for me. I don't like sugar. So that's definitely, definitely a misconception.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it was, I mean, there are a lot of things that contribute to it that we can change to prevent it. But
Right.
sometimes it's more, like you said, it's genetics that plays a bigger factor than our
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. So, regardless sometimes of what we do, we still end up with it. It just makes it more controllable, I think, when it's genetics and you can just change small things in your diet so that you're comfortable living every day with
Yeah.
it and not completely feeling like you're just giving it all up.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's the beauty I feel the last couple of years with health and wellness in general really rising to the top of the priority
Mhm.
list, and the fact that
Yeah.
there are more people getting educated, whether it's through being a dietitian or some
Mhm.
form of health program, for you to understand that it's a combination of a lot of things that you can do and still thrive. I
Right.
think there's a couple of people that I
Mhm.
follow where restrictive eating is not at all a part of their education. It is how to navigate your environment that still allows you to enjoy things, but you're also not
Mhm.
skyrocketing yourself off the meters. And things like more
Right.
insulin resistant other diseases or things that are coming up, people are realizing how important
Mhm.
that blood sugar management isn't just for diabetics. And I find that
It's not.
interesting that in previous years that was the only time that you heard about it, maybe in sports.
Right.
I will say there were some times in like sports nutrition where that was important, but you're working your body so
Mhm.
hard it kind of has to play a factor. But nowadays,
Mhm.
general blood sugar management isn't just for us. It really can be for everybody and should be regularly taught. So
Right.
I'm curious to know, like, this being only a year or so that you've been diagnosed with diabetes
Mhm.
and even the heart disease, which I know is something that's also something that we can be more prone to, even as Black women. But what were some of the physical and mental challenges that you went through, and how did you overcome them? And if you can throw any tips in there too, that'd be great.
So, when I was originally diagnosed, before I was diagnosed, I was the person who didn't go to the doctor unless I had a serious issue
Mm,
going on. And I had, doing my monthly exam, I had found lumps in my breast. So I was like, okay, well, of course, I was 40. So, well, 41. And I said, well, I guess it's time for a mammogram.
mm,
And I scheduled that and it was benign, which was really good. But I said, okay, it was kind of my wake up call. It is time for me to do my yearly checkups like I'm supposed to. Not that I don't have insurance to do it. I just never did it. And
yeah.
and I think that was more so because my mother never went to the doctor growing up. We didn't
Mm,
go to the doctor growing up. It was only if my brother broke a limb or my grandfather, who was an alcoholic, fell in the street and busted his head open.
oh
That
goodness.
actually happened. But to him, nothing was wrong. But that for that once, we went to the emergency room. And that was the only time I saw a doctor was in an emergency room. So I guess that was kind of embedded in me not to go to the doctor unless something was seriously wrong. And
Right.
it was just as I got older and my mother was diagnosed with so many ailments, and that made me be more conscious of what I was eating or what I was putting in my body, but I still didn't go to the doctor. So when I found the lumps and I had the mammogram and they were benign, I was like, okay, that's great, such a relief, but it's time for me to kind of take better care of myself and do all the tests that need to be done to make sure that everything is okay. And when I did that is when I was diagnosed. So I'm glad I did because it could have been a lot worse. When I was diagnosed, the day I was diagnosed, I hadn't eaten. So it was a fasting and my blood sugar was 326. And I
Mm,
remember that, like, that stuck in my head because it's important to remember the bad parts so that you don't go back
yeah.
to
Yeah.
that and just to improve overall to stay away from that because I don't want to go back to that. And I don't
Right.
even want the fear of knowing what could be if I were to go backwards.
Yeah, no, that's really powerful, and that's something that I'm implementing in my own routine because I think the hard part for type 2s or basically
Hmm.
anybody that doesn't have a heavily insulin regimen, like I'm medication only right now. So it's really hard for me to
Hmm.
see the effects until something comes up, right? And so part of
Right.
why I really feel like me and another guest talked about CGMs really could change the entire outlook for diabetics because you're immediately seeing things automatically.
Hmm.
You're not missing any information. You know exactly where you're at. You're turning up or turning
Hmm.
down. But it was such a struggle to get my CGM. And if honestly, if it wasn't for my dietitian, I'd be coming out of pocket quite a bit of
Hmm.
money just to track where I'm at. And visual
Right.
progress really helps because we're only seeing these doctors every 3 months or so, right? So we don't have somebody actively
Right.
on
Hmm.
us, and it is up to us to monitor that because the friends and family members who aren't diagnosed, they can't constantly chase us to ensure that we're doing what we're supposed to do, right? So it definitely
Right.
is something that I'm really grateful that I can have a bit more visual aspect because I don't want to go back either. My numbers were pretty insane when I was diagnosed, and you don't feel it until you start passing out or having these different
Right.
feelings, and that's when it gets really scary because those are those big warning signs. Like, all right, you didn't really notice when it was mild. Now I have to hit you with something bigger, so it's time to check into something. So absolutely, do not want to go
Right.
back. So I would like to, on that same note, dig a little bit deeper into what exactly were the steps that you took. Being a chef, I'm also curious like how that came into play and what you did to change up how you were eating but still enjoyed things because that's such a daunting task. I'm still trying to figure out how to enjoy cooking again without it feeling like this overwhelming chore because if I don't eat right, if I don't cook, I'm going to be tempted to order out and then, that kind of vicious cycle that you end up
Hmm.
in. So how did you kind of break down how to really eat properly with your skills as a chef and make it easy for you so it didn't feel like a daunting task?
So the key word is flavor. I am a third generation chef, so cooking is just what we do. I don't eat out a lot. I don't like leftovers. Never have. I am definitely not a fan of frozen foods. So when I decided to make the change, of course, a person who loves potatoes, I and fried chicken, of course.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I still eat fried chicken. I still eat fried chicken. I change the oil that I use to cook it, and a lot of times I'll remove the skin. So, and that removing the skin is more so for not going back to the heart disease that I no longer have, but you know, or preventing heart disease if you've never been diagnosed with it. But it's really not that hard because what's hard for me is when I'm marketing, and now that I'm marketing to diabetics as well, it kind of shies away people who don't feel like they need to eat healthy. So I don't cater for those people as much anymore, which is okay. It's okay. It
Mhm.
hasn't
Right.
really, my business has still grown, so it hasn't affected me. But I would love for, as a chef, I would love for people who still eat the bar foods or they have to have their loaded baked potato and all of those things. I would still love for them to at least try the healthy meals because they're not as bad as what I thought they were going to be. I was that person, oh, I can't give up my rice, my white rice, and well, I don't like brown rice, and but I started playing around with what I add to it just to make it
Mhm.
taste better. I don't remember the last time I had white rice at this point, and I don't miss it. So once you do away with it for a while and then you try to go back to it, you don't want it anymore because the taste is just not there. So it's basically training your body or your taste buds to adjust to the new eating and it just becomes second nature. So it's really not
Okay.
that bad.
Oh, I just wanted to kind of follow up with that. Like, what's something that you've done to make the flavors of the healthier meals stand out without, so like, I'll just pick salt, it's like oversaturating it, because obviously too much of anything can be bad for you. But I'm curious as to what are some ways that you can add better flavor to something so that your taste buds are kind of trained to the newer and healthier thing versus the
Mhm.
thing that you're, trying to avoid.
So we'll use salt as an example. The average person uses iodized salt. That's just what most people use. It's the cheapest salt on the market. That's what everybody has always known to use, and that's all they use. There are other salts, of course, that are not only healthier, but they also have more flavor and require a lot less for the same impact as, say, for instance, a teaspoon of iodized salt. If you were to switch that to pink Himalayan salt, you would only need a pinch of pink Himalayan salt to equate to that 1 teaspoon. So you're not only decreasing your salt intake, but you're still increasing the flavor. I
Gotcha.
use rice cauliflower, for example. I don't like it plain, so I'll add cilantro and lime. It gives it a really good flavor, and you don't really miss the fact that it's not white rice.
Gotcha. So I want to know, what's your favorite thing to make? That sounds like that's a hard question.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a really hard question. I don't know that I have a favorite. I do a lot of seafood dishes, not one favorite in particular. My son is a really big shrimp fan. So I guess one would be the ginger, garlic, lemon shrimp. So I
Oh.
usually serve that once again over rice cauliflower with either broccoli or asparagus on the side. So I
Hmm.
mean, and that meal, if it's served with asparagus, is about 30 carbs, maybe, if it's that
Okay.
many, depending on your serving size.
But you get a lot of fiber with it, so that helps. I
And
might
that's a
actually
pretty,
need that recipe. I love ginger everything.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I
that's a pretty large serving at 30 carbs.
yeah, yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So speaking of your chef background, so how did your
Mhm.
catering business kind of come into play? Because my understanding when we last spoke was that you were already doing your catering business before your diagnosis. Is that right? So how
Right,
did that kind of change things for
exactly.
you once you were diagnosed?
When I was diagnosed, I started doing a lot more research than I had done previously. I had done research when I was younger to prevent diabetes because on my father's side, my grandmother had both of her legs
Mm,
amputated. And of course, she died of diabetes even before I was born. So I never met her, but I knew her history. So I wanted to prevent that because even on that side of the family, all of my cousins were diabetics. And I'm like, okay, that is not going to be me. That cannot
yeah,
be me.
yeah,
So I did my research trying to prevent it. I didn't prevent it, but I did more research once I was diagnosed because I just needed to know. And I'm a researcher by nature. I looked at the numbers and knew immediately that there was a problem, like a serious problem. And when you go out to eat, the restaurants don't cater to us at
right,
all. There aren't very many options for us. You have keto and you have the vegan restaurants, but when you look at the ingredients that they use, a lot of their ingredients are high in sodium or they're high in this or they're high in that, and none of that is good for us. So there's
right.
not honestly any type of restaurant, whether it be fine dining or fast food, that caters to diabetics. So that was my pivot point where I decided that I was going to focus on diabetics because we can do better. We can do a
Yeah.
lot better. And I just think if the products and services were available, people would readily want to change their lifestyle and want to change their living so that they're not miserable every day because their blood sugar is too high or they've had a sudden drop and they can't function today because their numbers just aren't right. So if
Right.
I can help people balance it so that they're comfortable, then I've served my purpose.
That's awesome. Yeah. I definitely can see how that would come into play even with like, so I've done things like Snap Kitchen and stuff like that where they've got the pre-made meals, and a lot of it was trying to
Mhm.
figure out, okay, which type of meals, because they've got vegan, vegetarian, paleo, and keto. And I did the paleo
Mhm.
thing a while back, which actually really helped me get off a lot of processed stuff and kind of stick to
Mhm.
more fresher foods or find brands that are going to be boxed or
Mhm.
canned, aren't going to make things crazy for me. But even
Right.
still, I ended up with the same 2 or 3 meals at a time. And I don't mind leftovers, but I'm kind of like, all right, after like the third time, I'm ready for something different. And so to get, the
Right.
same kind
Exactly.
of meals every week and not have options to, kind of expand my palate,
Mhm.
if you will, it's really frustrating
Mhm.
because it makes food feel like a chore. You're already battling your body and you're trying to get back in
Right.
sync, and you need food to do it,
Mhm.
but you kind of want to be able to sit at the dinner table and actually enjoy it versus sitting in front of the TV and being distracted basically just so you can power through it. It makes me think of my partner, he's military. And so food for
Mhm.
him is fuel. And so, and they teach them
Mhm.
in the mess hall, they just slop it up really fast. Like there's no enjoyment. And
Mhm.
I grew up with such a diverse food background with my mom being from Thailand and my dad's from Shreveport, Louisiana. So
Mhm.
I'm getting all this great soul food and all this great. She did more than just Thai cuisine, but like all of these things. And you're just like,
Mhm.
I don't want to lose that. I've been exposed to. I love Italian food. Like there's no way that I can, feel good about it.
Right.
So it's so important for us to have those options because it's a
Right.
struggle. Which leads me to my next question for you. In as you were taking steps to get things under your control, doing a lot of research, leaning on your skills as a chef,
Mhm.
I'm curious as to like what in your routine and habits changed to help that progress to the point where you're at today.
Nothing in well, I can't say I was gonna say nothing in my routine changed, but it did. I was the person who only ate once a
Mm,
day, always. I was never a breakfast person. So my biggest change, I think, aside from changing the ingredients I use, was eating more often.
mm,
Because, and when I did that, I noticed not only did I start losing weight, but my sugar levels completely leveled out. And my doctor says, well, you weren't feeding yourself enough because I don't eat a lot. And people would
yeah.
look at me because I was overweight and think I was a big eater. I've
Right.
never been a big eater. So I was already eating small portions, but I just wasn't doing it at the right time.
Mm,
And probably a lot of times I wasn't eating the right things.
right.
So I wasn't limiting how often I ate my baked potato or how often I had fries or tater tots, which I love. So I started to limit those things. And when
I did.
okay, I don't know what just happened, but I started to limit those things. And when I did, as I started to feel better, I realized, okay, well, I need to do more of this. And as I did that, and I wasn't in the beginning, I made it my point, I didn't weigh myself. I checked my
Mm,
blood sugar, but I would not weigh myself because I didn't want the burden of, well, I lost 10 pounds this week, but I didn't lose anything this week. So
yeah.
that's too much stress. I just waited my 3 months and I knew I was losing weight because my clothes were fitting different, but I just didn't know how much I had lost.
I think that that's really powerful to at the beginning I don't even know why I still have a scale, to be quite honest. I think I have it more so for the body fat percentage. I know that that's a little bit more important in
Mhm.
like inches versus pounds, but
Mm-hmm.
that damn scale. Like it ruins everything because we've been raised in such a culture that is data driven in some of the wrong ways of like this number means this. And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny that you mentioned that because as I was sitting in my exam room waiting for my doctor to come in, they have that chart where it says your height in inches
Mm-hmm.
and then your pounds, and if you're in your healthy weight, obese, over that whole thing. And based on that, I'm
Mm-hmm.
considered overweight, but I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
might want to like lose, and I don't even know if this is accurate. I might want to lose like 10 or 15 pounds, but I'm pretty okay with where I'm at. Maybe a couple inches here. Like, I definitely have the chicken arms, and that gets to me sometimes. But overall, I spend a lot more time, and I still am working towards self acceptance, especially physically, to where looking at a
Mm-hmm.
scale is not important to me. Now, I still want to go to the gym. I still want to make sure I'm exercising to keep my body optimal, but it's way more
Right.
about health than it is about a vanity thing. And as soon as I really started to just do away with the vanity metrics, if you will, things shifted so much differently. Like going to the gym, it's still hard. I still struggle with it. It's really just getting out of bed because I like to get it over with. So afternoon and like evening workouts, like no, I want to do in the morning. But even so, I'm not going because I'm trying to be bikini ready, for anything. It's more so like
Right.
I know if I have more muscle, my body's going to burn more and it's going to process things more and it's going to be more optimized because staring at that scale every week. I'm even mindful of like workout programs where it's like, okay, let's do your measurements, let's take
Mm-hmm.
pictures. Like I like the picture idea because I think that's something
Mm-hmm.
that's hard when we're staring at ourselves every day. But getting on a
Mm-hmm.
scale every 5 seconds is just it makes you miserable because you are conditioned to think if
It
I
does.
see what my last weight was 187, I don't hate it, but I can feel myself battling like you need to be 145. I have been 145
Mm-hmm.
since high school, and I was active in soccer and volleyball. Like it makes sense for where I was at that time of my life, but
Right.
for where I am now,
Right.
that's not really feasible. I'd be okay if as long as
Mm-hmm.
my body is optimal, that's all that matters. It's not about reaching some perfect number. So I'm gonna reemphasize that tip. Just kill the scales. Just reinvent them to measure things outside of those stupid numbers because it's tough. Okay, so you mentioned that tater tots are one of your favorite things because you love potatoes. Do you have a preference? Is it
Yes.
is it all potatoes or because I know sweet potatoes have become the huge craze, and I didn't know that they were so versatile outside of sweet potato pie because that's what my grandma made, and I love her sweet potato pies. But I now that there's such versatility in them, I'm curious. Do you have a
Mhm.
favorite type of potato, tater tot, or dish that you like to do with different types of potatoes?
So now I make my tater tots out of cauliflower.
Oh, okay.
Um, and I play around with that and mix different things in with it. I'm really creative in the kitchen, so I just try things and either they're good or they're not. And if they're really good, then at some point I'll probably market them. But if I think they're horrible, then I'll never market them. Somebody else might, but I won't. But I still eat tater tots
Yeah.
every maybe once every 3 weeks. I'll have tater
Okay.
tots. Just kind of treat myself. But I do eat a lot of sweet potatoes. I also eat a lot of seafood. I still eat meat. People say don't eat meat. I
Yeah.
think we miss nutrients when we don't eat meat altogether.
Sure.
But I think it's important to eat everything in moderation. So
Yeah.
it's all about balance. And I don't think you have to totally eliminate anything. You just have to know your body and know what's best for you to have that
Hmm.
balance that you need to feel normal.
Oh my God, yes. That's like, I think that's the thing that I am appreciating about the health industry in general. I know keto is still a big
Mhm,
thing that's out there, and I will say I do appreciate that some of the
mhm,
products because I'm constantly looking at the labels, even if it has keto on it. To
mhm,
like I use the Skinny Mixes keto coffee mixers, which I really like, and I've been playing around with some of the keto. I miss cereal the most, but of course I loved the absolute sweetest versions, like Hello Fruity Pebbles, you were the joy of my life.
Okay.
So cereal is hard for me, but it's finding that what works for you. And there's a couple of Facebook groups that I'm in where I'm seeing people get slammed when they say, "Hey, I'm having this," and they're like, "Oh my God, you had too much of this," or "You shouldn't even be eating that." And just
Mm-hmm.
recognizing like we're all made so differently. And yes, our common ground is our
Right.
diagnosis, and we need to find community. Yes, some accountability, but also some like support. In that I can still, for the most part, eat bread. It's still very limited. I don't go crazy, but sometimes I have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Doesn't send me crazy, but I'm not burning through a loaf of bread every 3 days either. Whereas I know some people where it's like,
Right.
absolutely not. Like, if I even just look at half a piece of toast, my numbers start climbing. Same thing with hot cereals. I love oatmeal, cream of wheat, grits. Grits is a
Mm-hmm.
hard one. That one is one I have to treat myself to every now and then because I just absolutely love grits. And I'm going on record and saying this because I know this is a big debate. I don't do sugar grits. I don't do the sweet grits. It's weird to me. I'll do cheese grits. I like savory
Don't
grits.
do that.
It's such a huge battle. And when people would say this, like, I was like, what? You put sugar? It just doesn't feel right. Like, but to each his own. But
Mm-mm. It's not
yeah,
oatmeal.
right. Like I feel like it's just strange. And so, but that's when I'm like, I got to be careful. And portion sizes. I know you mentioned that too because that is
Mm-hmm.
something that has been imploded on in the food industry is nobody's properly giving the right portions of things. I try
No, they're
my
not.
best to take half of whatever order. I actually order from restaurants mostly now. I don't if it has a drive-through, I try to avoid it, but I'll take half that portion and put it
Mm-hmm.
away because I already know it's usually enough to feed 3 people and I'm only one person. But yeah, that balance is so important. So I hope there's a recipe book coming at some point. I know you said you're working on stuff, but it sounds like I need your list of recipes of all the amazing things to make me motivated to cook again because I enjoy cooking. I love baking more. That's one of the fun things I used to do with one of my aunts. But when I realized that cooking felt so heavy and overwhelming for me, that's when I got nervous because that's that danger zone for me
Mm-hmm.
where I know I'll slip into, okay, it's just easier. Let me order something because I don't want to deal with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So please make a recipe book. But as moving forward, what are your goals? I know you said you're working on some stuff. Can we know a little bit of what those offerings will be? Anything we should look out for?
Sure. So I currently have a diabetic guide, kind of for those who are, newly diagnosed or those who are just struggling to adjust. I also have a dessert cookbook for diabetics
Oh, I need
specifically
that.
that has 15 recipes that basically I enjoy taking the traditional recipes and making them suitable for diabetics. And that's just what I do. As far as the future, I have some things I'm working on as far as there's a pancake mix that is 10 carbs for 3 pancakes. I'm testing the shelf life at this point. I've already created it, but I'm just testing the shelf life before I put it on the market basically. Because my son loves Alfredo. So I have some noodles that I've made that aren't the zucchini noodles or the sweet potato noodles or things of that nature. Just they look like traditional noodles, but they're a lot less carbs than the traditional. So for those who love Italian food, that accommodates them. There's
Here
all
right
of
now.
these. I look at the everything on the grocery shelves and there's a lot of flours. There are a lot of, I mean, there's pecan flour, there's almond flour, you name it, it's there. They're still high in carbs. So I'm working on a flour that is very low in carbs. And once again, I'm testing different recipes with that to see how it works and if it works and if it's just suitable. So I've turned on my creative spirit and I've just gone into my little test kitchen and created things that I know would be very beneficial to the diabetic community. Once I move, because I'm not going to start manufacturing in one state and I'm moving to another. But
Sure.
once I move, then that will pick up, and I'll also have meals that people can heat and serve, things of that nature, just like Stouffer's has their lasagna and all of their meals are banquet. Well, banquet when I was little, I don't even know if they still exist, but they
They're
had
still
their
around.
frozen
Keep
meals.
it
So
hanging on.
see, I don't buy frozen food. I want to put that out for those who don't cook. So they're not, I want to deter people from who are diabetics from being tempted to go to the fast food restaurants because they can't cook, they don't cook, and it's quick and convenient. So if I can create something for them to make their life easier, then that's what I'll do. And I also teach cooking classes, of course, different ones. I have a different menu each class, so everyone can decide what they like and hop in the class and learn how to cook their favorite meal, basically.
That's really cool. I've been trying not to be so anti because I'm excited because I love pancakes. I have three mixes in my cabinet right now. One is it's
Mhm,
Birch's keto and it's a chocolate chip one, so I'm thinking that'll help a little bit, and it tastes like cardboard. And I have another mix. I haven't tried it yet because I'm just so nervous about it that
mhm,
I was doing the Hungry Root boxes for a little bit, and they gave me some good stuff. And one of
mhm.
them was a pancake mix. It's not too bad on the carb side. They use a lot more almond flour. But again, I'm just so nervous because I love pancakes. Like my partner will tell you, if we go anywhere that has pancakes, I'm probably getting it. And I try to,
Mhm.
like do half or like this is just my treat because I that's why I can't keep it in the house. Like that's my rule is
Right.
I do my best not to keep it in the things that I know tip me in the house. I do a one and done and then you got to reset for a couple of weeks or something.
Mhm,
But yeah, if
mhm.
you land that I need to I'll be a tester. Let me be a beta tester for all of this because those are like all of my
I
favorite
will
things.
definitely we can definitely do that.
Now your classes, do you do them online or in person or are you kind of doing a hybrid?
They're virtual. They're all
What?
virtual.
I've been missing out. That's what I need. Okay. So you're definitely gonna have to send me all the links for that so people can have access to that. Cause again, that's where my thing just kind of lies. And when I'm in an inspiration mode, I'm no Iron Chef, right? But
Mhm.
my mom watching her cook, especially my favorite Thai dishes, like that's something I would love to see. So if that's a challenge for any Thai dishes that are diabetic friendly, let me know. I'll test it out and let you know if it's legit. But that's some of the things that I miss. And it's usually
Mhm.
my request when I go home. I'm like, I don't care what dish it is. You just need to make me some Thai food because there's Thai restaurants all over Austin, and I've tried a couple, and very few of them meet mom and grandma standards. So
Of course.
I'm trying not to be biased, but making it myself sometimes that's been my challenge. It's like, okay, my family's from northern Thailand, so they're more spice and flavor
Mhm.
versus peanuts and sweet, which I
Mhm.
hate. And so
Mhm.
trying to kind of reverse engineer, like, okay, I played around with some mushroom noodles that actually did pretty well on one of the like soupy dishes that we make a lot, stuff like that that makes me excited to cook again and want to feel like I'm on an episode of
Mhm.
Chopped and I got to use what's in the kitchen to make something impressive for like Bobby Flay or somebody. I don't know. My
Right.
dad hates Bobby Flay, by the way. He despises him. But that really just makes me excited. I kind of want to think about what to cook now because I want to feel that. I want it to feel like being in the kitchen is fun again. I really, just
Mhm.
thank you for what you're doing to help those of us in the community find that joy again. I'm no professional chef,
Right.
but it's nice when I make something. If I can get my partner to be like, "Man, this is really good," like I know I've won for life because he's a very simple guy. It doesn't take much, but a lot of times just like, it's food, it's fuel, whatever. But if he's like, hey, this is really good, I'm like,
Mhm.
I need to memorize everything that I did because I'll probably never hear it again for like another 6 months. So I really do appreciate you and everything that you're doing. So with that, I'd like to ask the final question. Well, final two questions. And what's
Okay.
what's one piece of advice that you would give somebody who's newly diagnosed?
I think my favorite thing to say is diabetes is not the end of the world. Life
Yeah.
goes on. Don't let it be overwhelming to a point that you make yourself sicker than you already are.
I wholeheartedly feel that because stress also makes your numbers go up. So yeah, no, I agree with that. That's why we're here. That's why I'm here. That's why you're here in trying to be the examples that life can still be meaningful and purposeful and fun. Doesn't have to
Right.
stop simply because your body is asking for a bit of a reset. That's how I try to think of it. Positive reinforcement or something. But I like that. I like that. It's not the end of the world. It moves on, but it doesn't have to mean that you can't do anything about it. So, with that being said, excuse me, where can people find you? How can people connect with you, sign up for these awesome classes you're doing, keep up with these cool products? Even though I'm first in line for the pancake mix, so just everybody know I'm first in line. But how can we learn more and make sure that we are up to date on all the cool things that you're up to?
So I am on Instagram at Queen Lovely Official, and my website is www.thequeenlovely.com. And if you want announcements for the new products, then you can just sign up for the newsletter on my website.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I am super excited for everything that you are doing. I'm glad that you're going to be a fellow Texan. I'm glad that you missed the insane
Yes.
weather that we just came with. But I sincerely wish you a safe move. If I am in the Houston area, I'm definitely going to be bugging you to come try some of your meals because anything that I can do to advocate for us and ways for us to help each other, I'm all for. So thank you so much for your time and sharing your story.
It was a pleasure, and I'll definitely be in touch to get you some pancake
I
mix.
need it, guys. I need it. Awesome. We'll catch you guys next time. I am so serious about this pancake mix, y'all. Wasn't that great? That was a great combo, right? I just can't stress enough how exciting it is to meet other diabetics who are wanting to put themselves out in the world and create things that really do cater to us. There's already a lot of great products out there. We've got our own app with TV shows, Diabetic TV. Make sure you download it and check things out. But seriously, I'm really excited for everything Alicia is doing over at the Queen Lovely and the products that she's working on. It really was like she just picked all of my favorite things and was like, I'm working on making these. And the pancakes, the noodles for the Alfredo, because I love Italian food, having the flour that's specific, like all of these things are just super awesome, and I'm excited to see all that she's doing and definitely checking out one of these virtual cooking classes. I'm really upset I didn't know about it sooner. So make sure you sign up for her newsletter so when she's having these classes. I know sometimes cooking can be really difficult, but you can do it. It's not as difficult as we seem as it seems. Flavor, flavor, flavor. It's all about flavor. And yeah, I'm gonna go pick through my kitchen now and see what I can concoct because now I'm in a kind of Iron Chef mood and I am really inspired to get back in the kitchen, and that truly is thanks to Alicia. So make sure you check her out. All of her information is in the show notes. And of course, please, if you don't mind or you want to just make sure you're keeping up with everything that we're doing here at the show, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to check me out on the website, www.healingandhindsight.com. You already know where I'm at on Instagram, at Healing in Hindsight. And if you really enjoy these conversations and you want to support the show in any form or fashion, feel free to buy me a drink. Links on the player will also be in the show notes. I'll be happy to have a virtual cheers with you or coffee and appreciate any support that you give. More coming next week, but until then, I'll see you guys next time.